when you first were saying that you had to go grab your notes, I thought you were saying, I just took some NyQuil.
Oh, yeah, buddy. So we are on a timer.
I'm going to get loopy.
Oh, man.
I'm going to get real quiet
out
in the back half of this session.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you guys don't get night terrors from NyQuil?
No, I do.
Yeah, NyQuil
Me too.
jacks me up, yeah. Not a fan. I took it one time before work because, like, you know how you get those 2-packs, like, of the Dayquil and NyQuil, and they give you equal amounts? I'm like, this makes sense. So obviously I ran out of Dayquil before NyQuil, and I was like super sick one time before work, and I was like, I got to take something. Usually I take NyQuil and go right to bed, so I was just like, I don't really, it never really wipes me out. And,
so you were operating some heavy machinery.
Yeah, I was bartending. Definitely not ideal. It was a long night, to say the least.
Jesus, and a night shift? Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. I was working till like 3 a.m. or something.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey, folks.
And it's a new year, 2023, our first recording session, at least, of the new year here. It's been a little while. We took a couple weeks off for the holiday break. I don't know about you guys. I always feel a little rusty. I feel like I say this every time whenever it's been like a little bit of while or a little gap between recording sessions. I'm always like, I'm going to be a little bit rusty this time. But I definitely, I don't know, on these intros, I'm always just like, oh, here's a blubber fest. Let me just ramble on and just like, I don't know, talk a bunch of nonsense at the beginning. But you guys had a good start to the new year and everything?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's new year, it's the same us.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, we're back to talk about some video games as always. And Randall's been kind of digging into some handheld goodies as of late. So why don't you get us started here, Randall?
Yeah, I think I mentioned on the podcast, I don't know, a while back that I got an Analogue Pocket and talked a bit about that. There's been other things that have come up that have taken my attention games-wise last year in the meantime, so I didn't play it really last year as much as I thought I would between Elden Ring and Panzer Dragoon Saga and all these like longer games that are more intensive, let alone the NBA stuff. There's always stuff that comes up that gets in the way, but I managed
not to mention life.
Yeah, that whole part, it tends to take a large chunk of my my time, but so I did get back a bit to the Analogue Pocket. Kind of had the excuse of they keep updating the firmware too, which is awesome. Ooh. Adding the ability to add these, at least through these jailbreak firmwares, to add other systems that you can emulate. Those sort of things, which is super cool, and just little bits of functionality, adding more controller support to the dock, which I also have, all that stuff. So
that dock thing is probably the most appealing thing out of anything. Like, I mean, it's awesome to have a nice slick handheld with a really nice screen and basically just an HD, like modern Game Boy, whatever.
Yes.
But yeah, the fact that you can like hook it up and play it with a 8-bit DOE controller. And
yes.
I'm basically playing this on a console on my TV.
Yes.
Because they're not giving us the Game Boy stuff on the Switch online. There's plenty of free quote unquote free stuff on the 4 consoles that they have up there. So it's not like I'm complaining, but it's like I want those Game Boy games. There's so many good ones,
and it's probably still, I would say, on the market. It's impossible to get the Analogue Pocket, but it's probably the best solution for playing still Game Boy series games on your TV. And now these other cores that they've added, like the Game Gear stuff, and there's going to be like Atari Lynx stuff, and like basically any portable you could think of, seems like they're going to support on this thing. That's both on your handheld and then up on the dock, through the TV. So pretty cool. That being said, I'll start off just slightly negative and saying, I tend to like to play more in TV mode, even though this is a dedicated handheld.
Right.
Because, and I maybe I even mentioned this before, but playing it in handheld, God, the screen is beautiful, but the ergonomics of this thing are not great, I would say.
It looks a little small, like when I see it, just pictures of it. And a lot of times, because it's a handheld, there's someone holding it in their hand. And I'm like, man, they don't even look like they have a huge hand. And that looks pretty small. Yes. Comparatively.
Yeah. And I do kind of have bigger-ish hands, and like it's not that small. It's more like it's kind of just like the weight isn't distributed super well, I think. That might be it. And then like it's kind of got small shoulder buttons to accommodate like Game Boy Advance stuff, and it just feels a little crampy in the hands pretty quickly to me anyway.
Yeah.
Would have preferred
it looks like it has
that Game Boy Advance original sort of design as opposed to the Game Boy sort of,
It almost looks like a little bit more like SP form. Obviously, it doesn't like fold over, but it looks like roughly that size in my head. Like if the SP was just open and couldn't, if it was like a 2DS SP,
it's close
that
to
you
that.
couldn't close, but like that's like kind of the size it seems. Where like I think we just talked about it on a Save It for the Cast actually, where like that original Game Boy Advance, that like kind of rectangle with the shoulder. It was like basically like a Super Nintendo controller shaped, handheld, and it was kind of perfect for comfort, at least if you got bigger hands.
Definitely.
And basically every other handheld system other than the original Game Boy and like Game Boy SP like did have that placement where it was like, like having your hands that close together like they were on the Game Boy isn't like the most comfortable thing. Having them
not ideal.
Spread apart,
not ideal.
Like with the screen in between is kind of the like that's what every system has been since.
Yes, and it should be, because that gives some good weight displacement, I think, to the whole thing, and it gives your hands your fingers and your hands some place to go a little bit more, in my experience, right?
Yeah.
So I'm complaining, but ultimately, this, like I said, the screen's beautiful, the buttons feel great, all that's fine, but I just because of that, I ended up finding myself playing Metroid Zero Mission more in the TV as opposed to, in handheld mode. I started playing in handheld mode because it's been kind of my, I guess, tradition at this point to, when we go on our like cabin/camping trips, I have fired up Metroid games. I started with, way back when I played Metroid 3, aka Super Metroid, like a decade ago, and then Metroid Fusion, I played through, loved that, talked about that on the podcast. Metroid Dread, John and I talked about a lot, loved that. I think that was both of our second favorite games of 21, I want to say. Yeah.
I kind of forgot about that game. Like, I enjoyed the little bit I played of it, but I just never played much of it, I guess.
Quality game.
It was cool.
It's phenomenal.
Cool.
Yeah.
Forgot about it.
Yeah. Very difficult, but awesome, especially once you got the hang of it. So basically wrapping back around now to Metroid Zero Mission, which is a remake of the original Metroid from NES, which, is, I own the yellow label version of the original Metroid, but, some of those NES games have not aged super gracefully, and I'd say that, maybe I could give that one a chance, but because I knew this already existed, I never really super bothered to get into the NES version. And, finally I'm playing Metroid Zero Mission through the Analogue Pocket, and gosh, it's just like, it's gorgeous, it's perfect. And, having played Fusion so recently, I know they kind of reused a lot of that engine in Zero Mission, and it feels great and refined a little bit even. And the colors are great, the vibrancy is great. The sound is a Game Boy Advance, which means it's kind of, they do the best they can, but it's the soundtrack's great.
Them's fighting words for someone who adores that sound chip.
The soundtrack's incredible. It's more the sound chip that's makes it kind of fuzzy and holds
that
it back
muffled.
a little bit.
Yes, you are clipping at so many points in every audio file.
Yeah, just designed to come out of that like one little tiny speaker.
Right. Yeah. And even in the Analogue Pocket, you have some of these filter options, both video and audio. There's like an enhanced audio mode for Game Boy Advance, and I turned that on, and I to be honest, I don't know that I could tell that much of a difference, but I turned it on anyway, But that doesn't take away from Zero Mission so far being a lot of fun to play, and I've enjoyed that because it's a remake of an NES game, it seems like it's a little bit more streamlined, as we've talked in the past, some of these quote unquote Metroidvania games I can get lost in, but I've never really had that problem in Metroid, to be honest. And this one especially is very straightforward in my experience, which has been awesome. And like the whole like switch to the map screen is super seamless. And I'm not sure how far I'm in. I'm about to have the Kraid battle. If that's a spoiler,
Yeah, that's
it shouldn't
decent.
be a spoiler.
It's
because
decently far in it.
yeah,
Like the original didn't have like too many bosses per se.
Yeah.
And like especially in the original, like they were very close to the same sprite size as Samus.
Sure.
So like there's a lot like I think that if you are new to Metroid, I think that Zero Mission is like a perfect entry point. But like it is, I think I wouldn't say it's the definitive version of the original Metroid, because I do actually think the original Metroid it like holds up, but is like in the same way that I think the original Legend of Zelda holds up. In that it's kind of an experience that you're really not going to get anywhere else.
I hear you.
Like especially with like the password system being kind of weird and janky, that like I think the definitive version of the original Metroid is the version that's on the Metroid Prime. I'm such a like, can you imagine a more stereotypical thing of me to say than yes, but the Metroid Prime version of it has like the save built in, like it automatically puts the password in based on where you are. So like
that's awesome.
Or like theoretically, if you're playing it on like Switch and you could use save states or whatever or something like that.
Yes.
Real quick, do you play that on the GameCube, or is that one of the Game Boy Advance link cable dealios where you can play it on Game Boy Advance? Do you remember?
I can't remember if you have to beat. I think you have to beat Prime and link it to a. You do have to have a link cable, so this is an insane thing to ask for someone. But yes, you need to have
play it on Switch online.
or maybe actually maybe you just need to beat Prime. Now that I'm thinking about it, like
you got to beat the whole trilogy, stack all three discs on top of each other, and then
the Wii version of it, and then you link it up to it's because I think beating Fusion and using the link cable would just unlock the Fusion suit in Prime.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes,
let's go
you're
back
right.
to you talking about.
No, that's
well,
what I like talking about.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up too, because I was actually going to say it's funny that like I think I don't want to speak for Randall, but I think there was definitely a point in time for me for sure, and I think probably for Randall as well, where like I would have definitely been like I gotta play the original version of the original game, like I gotta play the true version, and now I'm just kind of like, oh, there's a better version or a more quality of life improvement, like there's just a version that makes it a little more easy to play, a little less tedious, and I'm just like, yep, give me that one, give me that remake. And I just don't even really I mean, when it comes to collecting, I do still want to have a lot of my original like cartridges and stuff, but like even on some of those, I'm just kind of like, man, do I really like Super Mario 3D World, for example? Like I got that for Christmas on Switch, and it's got the Bowser's Fury edition. It's like I don't need to have my Wii U version. I used to be like the type of person that was like, I gotta collect, I gotta have the original, or I gotta have, just gotta still own it. And now I'm just like, well, I can play it on my Switch. So
play
I don't
the
need
best
to have it
version,
anymore.
right? Have the best version in your library. But John saying that about it in relation to the original Legend of Zelda,
I was just gonna
NES,
say,
which is a game
especially
I
making
love.
that comparison.
I was like, maybe I need to
Zero Mission
reconsider.
is the much more fun version. Like I would absolutely replay Zero Mission in a heartbeat. Whereas like if I was going to like replay like the original NES Metroid, I'd be like, all right, I either need to have a map like that I can reference at all times, or I need to be drawing a map of it, which is a fun thing in itself. But like that's you have to be in a mood. There is no pick up and play. It is I am going to be dedicating myself to playing this game, as opposed to Zero Mission, which is just an effortless like pick up and play
streamlined
game.
It really
the
is.
The one thing I'll say though, because I see what you're saying about Zelda, but I feel like for me at least, Metroid games, even the ones that are more modern, not so much Dread, I thought that game controlled really well, but even like Super Metroid, I always feel like Samus just feels like really like floaty but weighty at the same time. Like I just have a really hard time controlling Samus, so I do feel like Zelda, I'm not really battling against the controls too much, where like I do feel like going back to that original Metroid, the couple times I've fired it up, I've just been like, okay, cool to experience it. But yeah, if I'm ever going to play it, which knowing me, I'm not the biggest Metroidvania fan, I'm probably not going to go around to it, but I think I do own Fusion and Zero Mission on Game Boy Advance cartridges. So maybe if I get an Analogue Pocket someday, I'll fire it up. But yeah, I don't know. These are probably the two that, for whatever reason, of the 2D Metroid games that speak the most to me. I don't know why. The two Game Boy Advance ones. But.
I mean, as that Game Boy Advance era, they knew what they were doing in those days, and it was they're very refined. They feel still kind of modern, to be honest, despite the format they're on. It's really great, and visually for Game Boy Advance, it's pushing it pretty far, sprite art wise. I'm enjoying it.
God, they look gorgeous. God, they really do. Like, I really do think that like Fusion and Zero Mission are just like two perfect games. Like, there's not really any like fat or like like they are just like front to back, just like nonstop, like good, satisfying action. And like,
I think I agree.
They're kind of, like Metroid is almost designed like literally to be speedrun. Like, so they are like pretty like compact, like good games that like will take you a long time when you are first learning it. But like, I was like, I can't imagine the idea of being lost in a Metroid game anymore, just because I literally have every Metroid map memorized. So it's like, I know like the best routes, or just the routes that are like the most fun for me. And like, I just do it every time. And I kind of like, I kind of want to go back to Chasm and be like, I want to have that first time again. Like that was the dream of like, you're playing a new file and like everything's randomly generated, but it's the same like bosses, the same everything, but
like familiar but different enough.
Yeah, you still have to poke around.
Chasm was a long time ago already. Like that would seem fresh at this point again, right? Let alone that's the conceit, like you said, of that game. It's there's a random element to it in general. Like, oh geez,
but it's not like a roguelike. It's not like your runs are
right.
Like, it kind of
it's
needs
a full-fledged game.
It needs that
you to take
time
a little
to breathe
time off.
in between.
Yeah, I'll say that I went. I think I did a Patreon poll or something at some point, and Chasm ended up winning. Or for some reason, I did a Chasm stream and like started from scratch. I was debating. I was like, should I pick up where I left off or should I start from scratch? And I ended up starting from scratch. And I was like, man, this game I forgot how good it is. I still have never finished it on either attempt, but I'm just like, this game rocks. I love it.
Oh, it's so good.
Speaking of like the like jailbreaking, like, hey, I know you're plugging in cartridges into your Analogue Pocket.
Oh, yeah.
But have you done any like loaded up any ROMs or homebrew stuff or anything like that? Or
allegedly.
Allegedly, exactly. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Allegedly, just a little bit, just to see like, oh, does this work? Oh, yes, of course it works. Yeah, just playing around it, which I've also done with the other analog systems that I've owned. It's always been for me, digital stuff doesn't exist until it's right in front of my face, and especially if it's just like, line by line, here's the title of the thing as opposed to a picture.
Like games,
It's never been my preferred way to really make a decision on what I'm going to play.
Yeah, it definitely is not the ideal way. But having said that, I was just kind of going through some stuff on my computer, and I was like, let me install a few emulators. I was having some issues with the stuff that I was using before. And I mostly, especially now that I'm living back in Michigan and I kind of have like this temporary setup, I'm using emulators to get like my retro fix when I feel the need. Not that I had everything hooked up or whatever, but yeah, if it's something that's not readily available right on the Switch. And so I was downloading, I was having particularly issues with like the handheld stuff, like Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance and whatever. So I was like, okay, let me download this. I think it's called like Visual Boy Advance or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let me download like a dedicated Game Boy emulator, because I kind of had like this all-in-one emulator that just wasn't getting the job done anymore. It was like just freaking out every time I used it. So I was like, let me do this. And then I had stumbled across this game called Samurai Kid a long time ago at some point in time. And I was like, oh, that was like a Japanese import. And I downloaded the ROM just to check it out real quick. And I was like, oh, but it's untranslated. But then I stumbled across an English translation patch. So I was like, okay, I got it. It always feels like super, like, not that it was anything. I literally just like had to like upload the files together, and then like it makes like a new ROM with the patch like installed or whatever. But I don't know, it just feels cool to like do stuff yourself. I guess.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. I made an English patch ROM for this game now. and gave it a try. It's a really, really cool, like it's got very just Game Boy Color style pixel art side-scrolling platformer, but like very, very clever, like puzzle platformer, almost like kind of Wario Land style.
Hell yeah.
You can take damage and die and stuff, but you're kind of like using your enemies. You can swap between like 3 different weapons that you have that can either like kill enemies or turn them into like regular blocks that you can like just turn them into like a, you know, block that you can jump on and whatever. And then you can, I don't know, you can do like a high jump. You can kind of like attack the wall and do like a little extra like spin jump to get a little extra height, or almost like a wall jump. I don't know, just a cool little game that I fired up for a quick second while I was, the main reason actually that I wanted to download or like kind of get all my emulator stuff fixed up is because I was actually firing up some homebrew stuff. I was just like, I had a few homebrew games that I had stumbled across and started playing a little bit of, and in particular from Matt Hughson, and I think you're a fan. I believe we've talked a little bit, just touched on some of his games briefly in the past. I think you talked about From Below, Randall.
Yep.
And do you own that game on
I do.
Like, cartridge form?
Yes.
Because I know he just got in cartridges of Witch and Whiz, which has been out for a little while, as like another NES homebrew game. And actually the reason that I went and started playing some of his games is because he released a game for a game jam called Minecart Madness. It's just kind of like a single screen arcade. You know, every time you collect all the gems on the screen, it goes to like a new, you know, Donkey Kong style arcade game, I guess. And there's only about, it was made for a game jam, so there's only like 5 or 6, maybe 7 screens before it starts looping over again. But it does add some new challenges into the mix after it loops, kind of like Donut Dodo did. Like, okay, now there's like a new enemy, but you basically can just like hold down like a brake button that has you not necessarily stop, but just go super slow, and then you can jump, and then you just have to like kind of like switch tracks at the, you know, cross points and stuff like that, and go like up to the next tier by, you know, it's just all about timing and like watching where like there'll be like a goblin on a mine cart, and you just got to like time it. Okay, I can't be going up that ramp, and if you go up with too much momentum, you'll actually like get a little bit of hang time. So you got to watch for like enemies that are maybe a little bit above the track.
Nice.
It's just a really cool game. It's just so cool to play stuff that's like, oh man, this would run on my NES.
Made for
because
NES.
Exactly, yeah. And like because I was playing that, I was like, you know what? I remember Randall talking about From Below, and I noticed it was just free to download on his itch.io page.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, nice. So I'll check this out. It's pretty much, I can't remember exactly what you had said about it before, Randall, but I mean, it pretty much is just Tetris.
Yeah.
With like a giant squid octopus off to the side that just occasionally like puts a tentacle in one of the columns and just shoves them up a few tiles, or just kind of fucks with your Tetris grid a little bit here and there. But for the most part, and then every time you get to like a new level, it just kind of switches the palette to a new cool palette, at least on the endless mode or whatever mode I was playing, maybe a caravan mode, whatever it was called. But I was just having a blast playing that game. Like I just kept playing run after run. I was like, this is just Tetris. I don't know why I'm so addicted. Just had really good music.
Yeah.
Just was really, really impressed. But I did end up playing a little bit of Witch and Whiz after that, and I got pretty sucked into this one. Like it's definitely way more fleshed out in terms of like it's a full-fledged like kind of puzzle platformer.
Yeah.
Has a little bit of, it's another NES homebrew game. Like I mentioned before, it actually just got in some like physical copies of it, and I believe he even mentioned that he's working on like either a Super Nintendo port or maybe even like a sequel. He's been kind of like teasing it a little bit on social media and stuff, but he keeps like saying there's more coming from Witch and Whiz. But basically, it's another like kind of single screen puzzle platformer, but it's more like very grid based. Like you can't see the grid, but you're moving like up, down, left, right. Like if you go to a ladder, you're like pressing up to go up one tile, like left to go left one tile, and you just have to kill all the enemies on a given screen. But like everything kind of has like a chain reaction. Like if you break these spider webs, the enemies that are standing on those will start falling down, and then you can't walk across the spider webs, so you won't be able to get to the enemies that are at the top anymore, that don't fall down when you break the spell. Like you just kind of learn the different enemy behaviors, almost like you would in like a roguelike, where like, okay, this is how this enemy behaves, this is how this enemy behaves, this is how the environment responds when I do this. But it's just got really, really charming pixel art. It's like the puzzles right off the bat get really, really tricky, but it just has like a really great like little opening sequence with, it's just kind of nuts to think like it very much looks like an NES game, but it's just like, it feels modern at the same time. I don't know, but like it feels retro at times, like where like, again, it's almost like a turn-based game. Like you're really moving like up, down, left, right, and then you can press the B button to like rewind your turn, one turn at a time. or you can pause it and just, reset the whole level. And I found myself doing that pretty frequently where you're just like, okay, that's not going to work. Let me reset everything. And I did that a bunch, but I probably got through the first like world and a half and was just like, okay, this is like, seems like I don't know how long the game is going to be, but like it's already starting to really, tease my brain quite a bit. Like I was really struggling to solve some of the puzzles in the second world, especially.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I was just really, really impressed with, Matt Hughson stuff, and it really makes me want to get some of that like analog, whether it's like the Super NT, which I never ordered when they announced that like that new batch or that last batch. I was just like, you know what? I was like, I think I just need to miss out on this and just not have one.
Sometimes
I guess
it's like that.
It's just better to just like let it go, know. Although that's what I said with Demon Throttle, and then I was like, oh, they announced the second batch. Let me order a copy. Better get it right away. And we'll probably talk about that sometime down the line. But yeah, I think I've done enough rambling about the retro homebrew stuff. There's plenty of other developers that are making homebrew stuff all the time. But yeah, I don't know. It's just so cool to play like a modern retro game. I don't know.
It really is. It's one of my favorite things. Yeah,
I'm very jealous of you like playing it on hardware as opposed to me just like on my laptop. Still every bit as cool of a game, but it's just not quite the same as like, let me cozy up in the game room and play this brand new NES game that, again, I know Witch and Whiz, I don't know about From Below, but I mean, there's like a really cool like packaging and manual and like really went above and beyond with, I don't have that physical version, but
still waiting on mine. Should come anytime.
Oh, you ordered it?
Yeah,
you ordered Witch and
a
Whiz?
long time ago, but it was with something else, and they ship them all at the same time. So
yeah, they wait
soon
to
enough.
Do like that. Yeah, heck yeah, that's awesome though. I'll be curious to hear. I kind of feel bad that I went more into the mechanics than I planned to on that one, but that'll be a fun one to talk about again because I would love an excuse to go back to it because it's one of those games where I know like I'm stuck where I'm at, so I feel like it'll be a hard time picturing myself going back to it. But at the same time, if you started playing it, I know I'd be like, ooh, Witch and Whiz. I haven't played that in a while.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'll be playing it.
Nice. Well, why don't we kick it over to John for a slightly different direction of conversation here.
Yeah. I just want to say that if you want to turn the podcast off now, you could find us at Pursuing Pixels on almost every platform and join us on the Discord, and we'll catch you next time because I am going to talk at length about how capitalism has hollowed out every industry and made everything worse in every conceivable way.
In a fun way.
Let's go, baby.
So this journey into darkness starts with an Instagram ad, which is annoying and ever present if you try to use the platform to see nice pictures of your friends doing things. And there was, in whatever algorithm has decided that this would be a good ad to show me, there was an ad for the game, the mobile idle tower defense game, The Tower, which has entirely inoffensive geometric, like minimalist art, and like just looked like a good time waster if you needed, to open up your phone for a couple minutes at a time or whatever.
Like kill some time at like the doctor's office or something. The screenshot you sent in the Discord, I was like, this looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a perfectly serviceable game, and actually I enjoy it quite a bit as an idle tower defense, like constantly like, oh, you get a little bit further and you get a little bit more money and then you can buy a little bit more upgrades, and that lets you could repeat the process forever. But part of the free-to-play model, which is in every free-to-play game, is a currency that you can either spend money on to get, or more often than not, watch an ad to get that currency. And for some perverse reason, I decided I was going to click on every single ad, every single chance that it was going to present itself to me. And I started making a list of every type of ad. And I got 2 pages into a notebook before I just gave up because it's bleak. It is like I have managed to like, back when I was on Twitter, I had been like cultivating like a decade-long list of block lists of just brands. So I basically had 0 ads on the social media platform that I used every day. And then when I moved to other platforms, like I was like, okay, this is irritating, but it's a different media, or you're getting different types of ads. But
you just kind of like learn how to like almost like scan for it. Like, oh, that's an ad. Like you just like, learn how to visually just breeze right over it.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, I have basically spent the majority of my time on the internet ad free, because I don't like, I either like ignore it and have learned to ignore it, or I just don't encounter them. So this was the highest volume of current ads running, and like it ran the gamut of like TV spots, like, or ads that you would see on YouTube, like stuff that was clearly like done by a major corporation that had budget and like was just putting the same ad on every single platform, just like scaled differently. Like it's, this is like not like the aspect ratio isn't built for phones. Like this is clearly not something that they made for a mobile game. Like it was just sent everywhere.
Yep.
And then
Shotgun
I got
blast
into the games that were like, I've seen a lot of like, I don't know, joke ad accounts that just post like bad mobile game ads, where like they show like a gameplay where like the player that is playing it is doing a hilariously bad job at it, and that's like a technique to make you frustrated and be like, well, I can beat that game. Or it's like the solution is so simple, like that it's trying to like trick your brain into.
It's funny you say that, because I've definitely seen there's ads on TikTok when I'm like checking our account and whatever for this game called Total War, and I've seen it on other accounts too.
That's on this list, buddy.
And that's one they keep showing like the same video clip, but with different people like reacting as if they're playing. And then they're like, oh, I just missed. And they're like acting like they're playing. But I'm like, I literally have seen this clip with 20 different people fake playing it.
So that gets into the genre of live acted ads. And I have seen so many scripted, I'm assuming scripted. By all accounts, it's probably just improvised. They were probably told, like, given one direction and it is
react to what's happening. And
I have so many of the same, like you said, the exact same gameplay, but like with like 7 different actors, and like none of them are good, and none of them but like, okay, they're not given anything. Like, I don't want to blame the actors like this, but it is like giving the lowest quality in every single aspect. Like I'm now getting ads where the gameplay is like probably just screen recorded from it, and then they use the TikTok like animated voice to just like speech to text, like just someone punting it. So they're not even paying actors at this point. And like, I've seen ones where they are using sound effects from Mario, Sonic, like other things, not even like they are so blatantly not using any amount of actual sound design, or just like Googling like things that have completely different sample rates. So there's no like, I am amazed at how low quality advertisements are. And I don't want to be the guy who is like bemoaning the fact is like, oh, advertisements used to be better. It's like, advertisements were always garbage. They were always a terrible drain of resources that accomplished nothing.
As a format,
Yes, but we are getting the worst quality now. Like, into like the ones that I hadn't gotten until recently were cameos from like porn stars just giving scripts for mobile games. And I'm like, at some point, like, there's an absurdity to it that is kind of enjoyable, where it's
but only because you have to wrap your brain around that way to like make it not be so bleak. Like, okay, this
was a decision
funny.
Someone made, where it's like, all right, I'm going to send this script that like on Cameo, and it's like, it has the watermark on it, like it's unbelievable. Or like, I came around to respect like all of the, like, they would show gameplay footage and then have a like fake streamer, I'm assuming is a fake streamer, I don't know, maybe they're actual streamers who have been paid to like give like, oh, this is all the techniques you need to do to like, and these are all 15-second ad spots. I'm like,
yeah,
it's real. I don't know why it bothers me so much, but it's truly depressing to see that this is still,
well, it's
like, there's so much money being spent on this.
Yes.
Like,
well, and I think it's even more depressing when it's like they're forcing you to either in this particular game in the tower, it's like, it's not forcing you because you don't have to play the game, but you like, if you're playing the game, you're either choosing, I can either watch this garbage or I could just buy and just cut out the middleman and just start playing the game and having fun, or, you know, whatever you want to do with the game. I can start just enjoying it for what it's meant to be, where like, I don't know, I like it. It's just a lot, like, as opposed to like when we talked about Jump Jerboa on the podcast, like that game was free and had ads, but it was just like every time you cleared a world or every time you cleared a level, there was just like a 15-second video, and then you went on to the next thing, or every 10 levels or something. So that was like, it didn't feel as gross, even though the ads were equally as shitty quality, but it didn't, you know, it wasn't like saying, hey, watch these or just pay to bypass this, if that makes sense.
This is just a natural march of where like a subset of games has gone to, basically, where it's like so many games now, because the value of games has decreased so much. Like there's free to play, but like you said, John, now it's like, oh no, we're not even going to give money. We know that a large percentage of our gamers that are interacting with our game are not going to even enter their card information one time or spend any currency in general. So this is still a way we can monetize, and we found the cheapest way of doing that too. And we're basically playing Minesweeper with these ads across all spectrums and just seeing what people click on.
Yeah, like there's absolutely no algorithm involved in this. It is like first come, first served. Like if you put your like garbage ad in the slot pile, we'll send it out. Like there's
Yep.
And I brought this up in our Discord like privately, where we were talking a little bit about how like they're just, you get this wide disparity. Like there's still obviously massive advertising campaigns, but they're only for either like giant like conglomerates like Nintendo, Microsoft, Ubisoft, like giant multinational corporations that have the budget to actually invest in an actual advertisement. And then you get like, there's no middle ground anymore. There isn't there aren't really middle tier like game developers anymore. So like you either get, honestly, the middle tier of game developers are these mobile games. And that's what the advertising is, because like they're the ones who are making money off of, you know, like so many of these mobile games are just basically gambling. And like so many of the ads are like, you'll get X amount of free pulls or like a guaranteed like rare character in this. I was like, if you see the actual like people who deserve, that's a weird and loaded term to use, but like the games that deserve advertising are like people who have no budget for it. Like they are people who are passionate about their games. And like, that is kind of what our podcast is. Like, we're not a critique, which that industry has also been hollowed out by capitalism, that you only have like really like legacy publications that do critique or passionate individuals who will do it outside of any structure,
like just blogs and stuff like that.
Right. And so we're essentially doing free advertising for games that we're passionate about that don't have budgets for it, and it's shifted off like this existing market onto individuals or like just outside of a structure entirely. And in some respects, that's nice, because you're getting like, we're only going to be talking about games we care about and only going to be talking about games we think deserve people to see. But it's also because it's going to be near impossible for a lot of these developers to get their game to people, to audiences, period.
Oh, yeah.
We do like, it's pretty much like it's unless you have like one of those huge indie hits like Celeste status or something, like it's pretty much totally dependent on like word of mouth and like the fans of your game spreading the word amongst themselves, and it just chain domino reaction.
Yeah,
because there's
But that's
no
pretty much
way
what it all boils.
for an individual game developer to be able to like do any like advertising that's effective, really. Like that's you have your passionate fan base or player base, and then you just kind of hope that it lands outside of that, or some like random streamer picks it up, or like there's just there's no infrastructure for this anymore, and it's depressing.
It's true. And I don't know what the future holds, because I don't see middle ground, mid-budget games coming back. Like back in GameCube, PS2 type of days, Xbox, we had a lot of those sort of games, those kind of mid-budget, mid-tier games. And there's a lot more experimentation that came along with it, with a decent enough budget to see that through. And there are indies that are trying their best at that, but they don't have the budgets to go full bore that way, right? So it's...
An underappreciated thing was that like a lot of those like mid-level companies or corporations were a great way for like entry-level people to get training in it.
No doubt.
Now, like to actually get trained in game dev, you basically have to do it yourself or take on the burden of it doing yourself. There's no institution to like actually, or like any like career path that isn't like entirely shifting it onto the game developer themselves.
Or working at like a AAA studio and
grinding from the
possibly
bottom,
not enjoying it. I mean, I'm sure there are people who do enjoy those jobs, but it seems like a coin toss. Like it can be a hellscape or it could be awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of faith in things getting better, but hey, if you need a game to play that just is nice, and I don't know.
It's got some nice vector art visuals.
Yeah, it's great. I've had it on silent like for ever since I got it, because it's got a pretty generic EDM soundtrack, but it's fine. It's a perfectly serviceable game, and I'm just depressed all the time.
That's the control I have over ads when they come up, is the mute button. That's always been my case, at least on TV. I'm like, no, motherfucker, this is what I control. Yeah. Yes, I'm still watching this live sport or whatever, but I'm muting you right now until you come back on. And yes, that takes more effort on my part, but I don't care. And if I try to apply that to games as much as possible if I encounter ads that way too. And thankfully, I have enough games to fall back on where I don't have to experience that too often. But that also means I'm not experiencing a lot of mobile games that are probably great.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that probably is hidden behind that stuff, or just people that they're like me. For a long time, I would probably say, "Oh, it has ads. I'm not even going to touch it." Where like now, I'd probably at least give it a spin just to see what it is. But I don't know.
I don't know. Wish free to play didn't exist, because I would rather just buy every game and make sure that developers are getting money, and then also circumvent a potentially like predatory pricing structure.
Yes.
Right. It's a lose-lose. Across the board, pretty much.
It really is, but
yeah. But on that uplifting note, I think we can. We always keep things pretty positive here, so I think we got to keep it real sometimes too. Just be, hey man, this game
where we're at.
Was kind of fun, but it kind of bummed me out while I was playing it, thinking about all the aspects that come into it. So I totally feel that. Yeah. But I think we can wrap it up probably there this week for the video games chit chat and whatnot. And 2023 is off to a good start. Outside of John's bleak capitalism hellscape or whatever. We'll be back again next week as always with some more video game chit chat. You can find us on the internet, pursuingpixels.com, and I'm rambling out of order here, so I'll wrap it up, and we'll catch you next week, and take care.
Bye.
Bye. Did you do a little Red Bull or something to kind of make up the difference, or like?
I'm sure I was just pounding coffee. Like I would always drink coffee before work, drink coffee in the coffee machine in the back.
Oh my God. Your body just like be like, we got chemicals coming from every direction. We just don't know what to do.
Yeah, just hating my guts pretty much.
Losing your marbles.
Yeah. Not ideal.
No.